You're watching KRON-4, the Bay Area's news station.
This is Channel 4's News Watch, the Bay Area's most complete, up-to-the-minute presentation of local, national, and worldwide events.
Good evening, I'm George Reddick.
And I'm Fred LaCoste.
A handful of supervisors. Some say 9, some say as many as 11.
From the Broadcast Center for Northern California, this is NewsCenter 4 with Paul Ryan and Roberta Wong. Now, NewsCenter 4.
Good afternoon.
This is the Newswatch 4 team, Alan Frio and Terry Lowry, and sports with Ron Barr. This is NewsCenter 4 Update with Valerie Coleman and George Redding.
Good evening, everyone. State authorities have closed down parts of 2 Oakland schools for fear that they might collapse on students. The schools involved are Oakland's McClyman High School and King Estates Junior High.
I'm Dick Courier, live in San Jose, where 4 of the area's 14 hospitals have some pretty serious labor problems. The nurses have walked out. I'll tell you how that'll affect your health care next on NewsCenter 4.
I'm Janine Yeomans in Oakland with a story about a woman who's lost her home, everything, but not her sense of values. That story's next on NewsCenter 4.
I'm Bill Irwig in Pontiac, Michigan. This is the Silverdome where the 49ers and the Bengals will play Super Bowl 16 next Sunday. There's 80,000 seats in here. I'll show you the best and the worst. That's next on NewsCenter 4.
Now, from the News Center for Northern California, this is NewsCenter 4.
Good evening, everyone. Evan White's on special assignment. I'm Bob Jimenez.
And I'm Rita Channon.
From the News Center for Northern California, this is NewsCenter 4.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Rita Channon.
Good evening. I'm Paul Udell.
A landslide disaster near Quincy, a hydroelectric power plant heavily damaged. Thousands lose their power. Details next. And an immigrant family's dream comes true, even though it's not exactly what they planned.
Hundreds of drunk driving charges could be dropped in Alameda County. We'll tell you why. And the American Ballet Theater comes to San Francisco, led by Mikhail Baryshnikov, and we'll see them in action. I'm Lloyd Patterson.
And I'm Jan Rasmussen. The Midday Report is next.
Now from the News Center for Northern California, this is Midday.
It's 4 o'clock Tuesday afternoon. Welcome to TGI4. I'm Patrick Van Horn.
And I am Roz Abrams, filling in for Jan Rasmussen, who has this week off.
Now, from the Emmy Award-winning News Center for Northern California, this is NewsCenter 4.
Good evening, everybody. Late this afternoon, a federal court in Washington, D.C. reached across the continent and short-circuited PG&E's Diablo Canyon nuclear power plant.
Now, from the Emmy Award-winning News Center for Northern California, this is NewsCenter 4 Update.
This is what it looks like tonight along the coast of North Carolina. The deserted streets of small towns, doormats for the cutting edge of hurricane.
Bob Jimenez, Evan White, Mark Thompson Weather, Tom Nettles Sports. Bob McCarthy in Helicopter 4. And now, from the News Center for Northern California, this is Live at 5.
5 o'clock in San Francisco and...
Sylvia Chase, Jim Paymar, Mark Thompson weather, Tom Niddle sports, Wayne Shannon with commentary. And now from the West's most honored newsroom, the News Center for Northern California, this is News Center 4 Update.
Good evening. Sky-piercing flames, explosions, and toxic smoke.
Sylvia Chase, Jim Paymar, Mark Thompson weather, Tom Niddle sports, Wayne Shannon with commentary. And now from the West's most honored newsroom, the News Center for Northern California, this is News Center 4.
Good evening, everyone. Tonight, the sweet sound of industry will...
Sylvia Chase, Jim Paymar, Mark Thompson weather, Tom Niddle sports, Wayne Shannon with commentary. And now from the West's most honored newsroom, the News Center for Northern California, this is News Center 4.
Good evening, everyone.
Sylvia Chase, Jim Paymar, Mark Thompson weather, Tom Niddle sports, Wayne Shannon with commentary. And now from the West's most honored newsroom, the News Center for Northern California, this is News Center 4.
Good evening, everyone. Japanese officials say they will seek an emergency meeting next week to urge...
Emerald Ye, Jerry Graham, Pat Finn weather, Gary Radnich sports. And now from the West's most honored newsroom, the News Center for Northern California, this is News Center 4.
Good evening and happy Mother's Day.
Jim Paymar, Evan White, Mark Thompson weather, Tom Niddle sports, Wayne Shannon with commentary. And now from the West's most honored newsroom, the News Center for Northern California, this is News Center 4 Update.
Good evening.
Sylvia Chase, Jim Paymar, Mark Thompson weather, Tom Niddle sports, Wayne Shannon with commentary. And now from the West's most honored newsroom, the News Center for Northern California, this is News Center 4.
The Golden Gate Bridge, considered the 8th wonder of the world, the bridge they said couldn't be built, stands magnificent on the eve of her 50th birthday. Good evening, everyone. For a half a century, this glorious structure has been a symbol of man's achievement, his ability to dream impossible dreams.
This is News Center 4 at 11. With Jerry Graham, Catherine Heenan, Pat Finn's neighborhood weather, and Pete Liebengood on sports.
Good evening, I'm Catherine Heenan.
And I'm Jerry Graham. Sacramento.
You're watching KRON-TV Channel 4. From the News Center for Northern California, Evan White, Emerald Ye, Mark Thompson's neighborhood weather, and Helicopter 4 traffic reports with Rita Cohen. Now, News Center 4 at 5. You're watching KRON-TV Channel 4. From the News Center for Northern California, Sylvia Chase, Bob Jimenez, Mark Thompson's neighborhood weather, and Gary Radnich with sports. Now, News Center 4 at 6.
Good evening, everyone.
You're watching KRON-TV Channel 4. From the News Center for Northern California, Suzanne Shaw, Bob Jimenez, Mark Thompson's neighborhood weather, and Gary Radnich with sports. Now, News Center 4 at 11. You're watching KRON-TV Channel 4. From the News Center for Northern California, Suzanne Shaw, Bob Jimenez, Mark Thompson's neighborhood weather, and Gary Radnich with sports. Now, News Center 4 at 11. You're watching KRON-TV Channel 4. From the News Center for Northern California, Evan White, Emerald Ye, Mark Thompson's neighborhood weather, and Helicopter 4 traffic reports with Rita Cohen. Now, News Center 4 at 5.
Good evening. A man in a business suit calmly walked into a suburban Atlanta shopping mall today, and then without any warning...
You're watching KRON-TV Channel 4. From the News Center for Northern California, Suzanne Shaw, Bob Jimenez, Mark Thompson's neighborhood weather, And Gary Ratnich with sports. Now, News Center 4 at 11.
24-hour news continues from News Center 4 at daybreak.
And good morning to you all. It's a Friday morning. Lloyd Patterson with the Morning Off. Manigai.
24-hour news continues with Pete Wilson, Pam Moore, Janice Huff, and Gary Radnich. You're watching News Center 4 at 10.
Tonight I say to them, join us, and together we will revitalize America.
24-hour news continues from News Center 4 at 11.
24-hour news continues with this special edition from News Center 4.
Good evening, I'm Emerald Ye at News Center 4. NBC is giving us a few minutes now to bring you up to date on local events related to the war. But first we want to tell you
24-hour news continues from News Center 4, Sunday morning.
Good morning, everyone. It is nice to have you along on this Sunday morning. And I have to tell you, yesterday was one of the most beautiful days we have seen in a long time, all the way from start to finish.
Saving this baby's life. A new heart is the only wish of a little boy at Stanford Hospital this morning.
Putting an end to gang activity, one police sweep nets nearly 30 arrests.
And a whale of a mystery in Santa Cruz. These stories and more ahead on Daybreak.
This is News Center 4 Daybreak, your 24-hour news service.
Good morning, it's 6:02. Welcome to Daybreak. It is Thursday, July 22nd. I'm John Kessler.
And I'm Susan Blake. We're going to start on a good note this morning. A little Palo aid on a Somali warlord leads to the deaths of at least 4 journalists.
And a daring daylight robbery at one of San Francisco's biggest hotels.
This is News Center 4 Midday, your 24-hour news service.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Evan White.
And I'm Susan Blake. A major earthquake rocking northern Japan today, setting off a hotel fire.
This is News Center 4 at 5, your 24-hour news service.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Catherine Heenan.
And I'm Tom Sinkovich.
This is News Center 4 at 5, your 24-hour news service. News Center 4 Night Beat, your 24-hour news service.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Pete Wilson.
And I'm Pam Moore. Thank you for staying up with us tonight. We'll have more on the explosion in 5 minutes with an ATM machine and all the money you can grab.
You're watching News Center 4. More news, more often. With Pete Wilson, Pam Moore, meteorologist Janice Huff, and Gary Radnich on sports. Stay with us as your 24-hour news service continues. This is News Center 4 Night Beat, your 24-hour news service.
Good evening, everyone.
You're watching News Center 4 Daybreak with Susan Blake, John Kessler, meteorologist Lisa Argent, and Malu Nubla on traffic. News Center 4, 24-hour news, every day, every hour. You're watching Catherine Heenan on News Center 4 at 5.
A federal judge in Oakland has ruled that don't...
Live from the news leader in Northern California, News Center 4 at 5. Here's the very latest.
Good evening and welcome, everyone. I'm Catherine Heenan. More Northern California connection.
You're watching News Center 4 at 5 with Catherine Heenan, meteorologist Lisa Argent, and Vernon Glenn on sports. News Center 4, 24-hour news, every day, every hour. Live from the news leader in Northern California, First 4 News. Here's the very latest.
Still reeling from a devastating fire, an entire city is now almost underwater. 50,000 people told to get out with whatever they can carry. Hello, I'm Wendy Takuda.
And I'm Pam Moore. Our first story this Monday, the devastation in Grand Forks, North Dakota.
Live from the news leader in Northern California, News Center 4 Night Beat. Here's the very latest.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Pete Wilson.
And I'm Pam Moore. Thank you for joining us tonight. A major...
From the news leader in Northern California, News Center 4 at 6. Here's the very latest.
The people of Rio Negro may never be able to go home again, but they do have some powerful help tonight.
Live from the news leader in Northern California, News Center 4 Night Beat. Here's the very latest.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for being with us tonight. I'm Tom Sinkovich.
And I'm Catherine Heenan. It was
Live from the news leader in Northern California, News Center 4 Night Beat. Here's the very latest.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Pete Wilson, and here are the stories making news in the Bay Area and around the world at this hour.
Live from the news leader in Northern California, News Center 4 at 6. Here's the very latest.
Tom Amiano, 44,539, 25.4%.
Live from the news leader in Northern California, this is First 4 News on KRON.
She could have at any time stepped in her apartment.
Live from the news leader in Northern California, this is KRON 4 News at 6.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Pete Wilson.
And I'm Wendy Takuda. Thanks for joining us.
Live from the news leader in Northern California, this is KRON 4 News Night Beat.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Pete Wilson, and here are the stories making headlines in the Bay Area and around the world at this hour. Another February storm making for slow going in the Sierra tonight.
KRON 4 Morning News.
Live from the Bay Area's news station, this is the KRON 4 Morning News.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Mark Mullen.
And I'm Susan Blake. The time now is straight up 7 o'clock. And welcome to a new year, a new show, and we have a...
Live from the Bay Area's news station, this is the KRON 4 Morning News.
And good morning. It is 7 o'clock on a busy Thursday morning. Looking live at SFO there this morning. Sunrise is not up. We've got some pretty mild temperatures. Not the same thing back east. We'll be checking on that momentarily. Coming up this morning, NASA's rover begins to explore.
Live from the Bay Area's news station, this is KRON 4 News at 4.
Well, if you thought it would be tough going getting home from the snowy Sierra to...
From the Bay Area's news station, this is KRON 4 News at 5.
A barn burner in the North Bay, a suspicious fire is just the latest in a...
Live from the Bay Area's news station, this is KRON 4 News at 5:30.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks very much for joining us. I'm Mark Mullen.
And I'm Pam Moore. Welcome to KRON 4 News at 5:30.
Live from the Bay Area's news station, this is KRON 4 News at 6.
Good evening, I'm Wendy Takuda.
And I'm Tom Sinkovich. Thank you for joining us on this New Year's Eve when, as we speak...
Live from the Bay Area's news station, this is KRON 4 News at 6:30.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome. I'm Tom Sinkovich.
And I'm Wendy Takuda.
Starts now.
Live from the Bay Area's news station, this is KRON 4 News at 6.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Vicki Leviakis.
And I'm Wendy Takuda. Tom Sinkovich is off tonight. Thanks for joining us.
Next at 9, Judgment Day for a Santa Rosa priest accused of sexual assault.
Plus, a Bay Area school makes a major move to shake an invisible threat.
All in one. But does this recycling bin do more harm than good?
And a love potion or snake oil. Just one small spot sells a product with big claims.
Live from the Bay Area's news station, this is KRON 4 News at 9.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Pam Moore.
And I'm Wendy Takuda. Thanks for joining us.
Sanctity of marriage. I believe a marriage is between a man and a woman.
And the president says he'll work toward making that belief the law of the land.
President Bush makes a strong statement against legalizing gay marriage, wading into a controversy that hits home for many in the Bay Area.
KRON 4's Teresa Estacio joins us from San Francisco with tonight's top story. Teresa.
And good evening. You know, this is a topic that touches the heart of many Bay Area residents.
I'm extremely embarrassed. I regret that I'm standing here in front of you in this type of situation.
Here's one picture. 49ers quarterback Jeff Garcia certainly does not want in the paper.
More on that story in 7 minutes. But first tonight, one city's fight to know if sexual predators will be released in their community. It could lead to changes in the law.
KRON 4's Jesse Gary is live in Martinez with tonight's top story. Jesse.
Pam and Wendy, this police department is taking steps to protect their community.
Live from the Bay Area's news station, this is KRON 4 News at 11. Live from the Bay Area's news station, this is KRON 4 News Weekend.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to 2 live hours of KRON 4 News Weekend. Good morning,
Good
gentlemen.
morning. Morning. Nice to see you this morning.
Yeah, good to have you on the set.
Live from the Bay Area's news station, this is the KRON 4 Morning News. This is KRON 4 News with the headlines at 4. Live from the Bay Area's news station, this is KRON 4 News at 4 with Rob Black and Your Money. Live, this is KRON 4 News at 6. Live, this is KRON 4 News at 11.
Developing news begins our newscast tonight. An emergency meeting is still going on at this hour in Sacramento. Top state lawmakers and the governor are in a closed...
This is the Bay Area's news station. KRON 4 News starts now. This is the Bay Area's news station. KRON 4 News starts now with a developing story.
A developing story tonight at 6 o'clock.
This is the Bay Area's news station. KRON 4 News at 5 starts now.
At 5, that kid saves the city.
That kid forever in San Francisco.
That kid, only 5 years old, fights crime on the tough streets of San Francisco and captures thousands of hearts along the way.
It has been remarkable, a day-long adventure for Miles Scott, the 5-year-old boy whose wish to be a superhero came true today.
This is the Bay Area's news station. KRON 4 News at 6 starts now.
Food and water finally reaching some of the desperate typhoon survivors in the Philippines. In some coastal towns, almost every building has been flattened. 500,000 people living in shelters, 2.5 million needing to be fed.
This is the Bay Area's news station. KRON 4 News at 11 starts now.
Contacting all the marinas to see in between San Diego and Humboldt to see if they stopped anywhere along the way and if anybody has any information.
Now, from the Bay Area's local news station, you're watching the KRON 4 Morning News at 4.
Good morning.
From the Bay Area's local news station, we begin now with breaking news.
And that breaking news this...
Now, from the Bay Area's local news station, you're watching the KRON 4 Morning News at 6.
Good morning and
Now, from the Bay Area's local news station, you're watching the KRON 4 Morning News at 7.
Good morning and thanks for joining us. I'm Dark.
Now, from the Bay Area's local news station, you're watching the KRON 4 Morning News at 8.
Good morning and thanks for joining us. I'm Dark.
Now, from the Bay Area's local news station, you're watching the KRON 4 Morning News at 9.
Good morning and thanks for waking up with us.
Now, from the Bay Area's local news station, this is KRON 4 News at 3.
Thanks for joining.
Now, from the Bay Area's local news station, you're watching KRON 4 News at 5.
Now at 5 after...
Now, from the Bay Area's local news station, you're watching KRON 4 News at 6.
Now at 6, California Health League.
Now in prime time, from the Bay Area's local news station, you're watching KRON 4 News at 8.
This is super exciting.
Now in prime time, from the Bay Area's local news station, you're watching KRON 4 News at 9.
You can never be ready for...
Now in prime time, from the Bay Area's local news station, you're watching KRON 4 News at 10.
Thanks for joining us on this Tuesday night, everybody.
Now in prime time, from the Bay Area's local news station, you're watching KRON 4 News at 10.
There's a lot of broken glass.
Most of the time it's broken glass in the floor.
The crime scene across the Bay Area, even during the coronavirus epidemic. Police in the East Bay are warning about break-ins at popular parks. Thanks for joining us at 10 on this Saturday night. I'm Ken Wayne.
And I'm Pam Moore. Visitors say they have seen lots of broken glass lining the road near
Now, from the Bay Area's local news station, you're watching the KRON 4 Morning News at 4.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you for waking up with us on the KRON 4 Morning News. It is Thursday, December 3rd. I'm Robin Winston. We appreciate your company.
Now, from the Bay Area's local news station, you're watching the KRON 4 Morning News at 5.
Good morning, and thanks for waking up with us on a Thursday. I'm Daria Folsom.
And I'm James Fletcher. We've got a nice day on tap, I think, today, probably a lot like yesterday.
Yeah, what are you doing?
Now, from the Bay Area's local news station, you're watching the KRON 4 Morning News at 6.
Good morning, and thanks for waking up with us. I'm Daria Folsom.
And I'm James Fletcher. If you're just joining us this morning.
Now, from the Bay Area's local news station, you're watching the KRON 4 Morning News at 7.
Good morning, and a Merry Christmas to you. Season's greetings from KRON 4. I'm Daria Folsom.
Stick around. KRON 4 News at 3 starts right now.
Now, from the Bay Area's local news station, this is KRON 4 News at 3.
We don't act now, our hospital system will...
Now, from the Bay Area's local news station, you're watching KRON 4 News at 5.
Now at 5, a huge jump in the number of COVID-19 cases reported in California today.
Now, from the Bay Area's local news station, you're watching KRON 4 News at 6.
And now at 6, the Golden State Warriors getting ready for their home opener tonight.
Now in prime time, from the Bay Area's local news station, you're watching KRON 4 News at 9.
Now at 9, high winds and...
Now in prime time, from the Bay Area's local news station, you're watching KRON 4 News at 10.
Now at 10, a critical turning point tonight in the battle against the coronavirus.
Anyway.
From the Bay Area's local news station, we begin now with breaking news.
Those stories and more coming your way in just a few moments, but first, KRON 4 News at 10 o'clock starts this Sunday.
To support their addiction.
Voters will soon decide whether to enforce tougher penalties for drug and property crimes, how people in San Jose feel about Prop 36. And an East Bay animal shelter is scrambling to get their pets adopted now that Caltrans is forcing them off their property.
Now, live from the Bay Area's local news station, this is KRON 4 News at 7.
Good morning. 7 o'clock. I'm Stephanie Lynn.
And I'm James Fletcher. We've got weather and traffic checks to take care of first thing here in the morning before we get to the headlines. And we've got weather, obviously, to talk about.
Sharp escalation of the fighting in the Middle East.
Now, live from the Bay Area's local news station, KRON 4 News at 2 begins with a severe weather alert.
There is a severe weather alert across the Bay Area today. A look now at the current temperatures, and it's only going to get hotter from here. We're facing a second day of a heat wave. Thank you for joining us here on KRON 4 News at 2. I'm Justine Waldman. Scorching temperatures are here, and it could get dangerous.
Now, live from the Bay Area's local news station, KRON 4 News at 4 begins with a severe weather alert.
Good afternoon. Thanks for being with us today for KRON 4 News at 4. I'm Grant Lotus.
And I'm Vicki Liviakis. Scorching temps are upon us, and it could get dangerously hot.
Now, live from the Bay Area's local news station, KRON 4 News at 11 begins with breaking news.
That breaking news tonight out of Oakland, where 2 BART stations are closed because of a medical emergency. Thanks for joining us here at 11 o'clock. I'm Dan Thorne.
And I'm Noelle Bello. BART officials sent out an alert around 9 o'clock tonight about the emergency and closure of the Fruitvale station. This is some new video from the scene. The entrance to the Fruitvale station is taped off, and police officers still on scene tonight. We're still trying to get a little bit more detail on exactly